All right, today we're going to talk about topic 7.3, which is triangle inequalities. And there's several different things we're going to talk about in this chapter. The first one is how to construct a triangle. So this is a very important concept. So in order for a triangle to be constructed, the sum of the smaller sides must be bigger than the larger side. Now, just as a definition, that's a little just as a definition, that's a little bit confusing. But what that basically means is if I'm ever going to draw a triangle, the two smaller sides have to be bigger than the third side to make a triangle. So, for example, I cannot have. We'll write some examples of what that looks like. So, for number one, if I had a triangle and the three sides were 8, 9, and 10. So these are the three sides that I'm talking about. So what this definition is saying is that in order for a triangle to be made, the two smaller sides, when you add them together, have to be bigger than the biggest side. So the two smaller sides are 8 and 9. That means when I add those two together, it has to be bigger than the third side, which is here, the orange right there. So if I add these two together and I got 8 plus 9, 8 plus 9 is 17. 17 is bigger than 10. So yes, I can make a triangle. If I had a triangle with sides of that, if I had a triangle with sides of those lengths. Let's look at number 2. So for number 2, if I had sides of 1, 1, and 2, if those were the side lengths of a triangle, could I make a triangle? Well, the two smaller sides are 1 and 1, sorry. 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 is not bigger than 2. It's equal to 2. So that would be a no. It has to be bigger for me to be able to make a triangle out of it. Let's look at another example. Example number 3. 6, 6, and 10. Could those be the sides of a triangle? Well, I have to look at the two smaller sides. 6 and 6. So that'd be 6 plus 6. That is 12. 12 is bigger than 10. So that would also be a yes. Again, because the two smaller sides are bigger than the third side. And one more example, we'll look at number 4. Number 4, if I had sides of 4, 4, and 4. So I'll look at the two smaller sides. That would be 4 plus 4, which is 8. And 8 is bigger than 4, so that would be a yes. So that's how I can tell if I can make a triangle. The reason that is because if I make a triangle and the two sides aren't long enough, this is what my triangle will look like. It won't close. So that's why the sum of the two smaller sides has to be bigger than the third side. Otherwise, you end up with a triangle that won't close or something that looks like that. So that's a very important concept right now. Next, moving on, the next thing we're going to talk about is how sides correspond to angles. So this is another very important concept. The largest angle is opposite the larger side, and the smallest angle is opposite the smallest side. These are very important things. So without even knowing what the smallest side and the larger side, what the actual number is, I can tell which one's the biggest and which one's the smallest based on the angles, and vice versa. So for example, if I had a triangle that looked like this, and let's call this triangle ABC. So ABC, and then I'm going to tell you that angle A is equal to 120 degrees, angle B is equal to 40 degrees, and angle C is equal to 20 degrees. And then I want you to, we're going to find the largest side. And we're going to find the smallest side. So if I'm looking at this, the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and label this picture. So I'm going to label A, we know is 120 degrees, so I'm going to go ahead and write it right there. We know B is 40 degrees, so I'm going to go ahead and write it right there. And I know C is 20 degrees. I'm going to go ahead and write it right there. So now we can look and see which one of these is the biggest side. So again, looking up here, we know the largest angle is opposite the largest side. So if I find the largest angle, which is right here, 120, I'm going to draw an arrow from it and see what side that's pointing to. That is pointing to this side right here, which is side BC. So the largest side would be BC. The smallest side, I need to find the smallest angle, which is right here, 20. And I need to draw an arrow and see what's opposite of that. That would be this side right here. That is side AB. So that would be the smallest side, AB. All right, moving on, talking about that same exact concept. If I had another triangle that looked like this, let's call this triangle also triangle ABC. So if I looked at this and I said that was 12 and that was 15 and this was 9, two things I want to do. I want to classify the triangle by sides. And I want to list the angles from small to large. So these are the two questions that I'm going to answer. The first one is classify the triangle by its side. Well, we know when we're talking about classifying the triangles by its sides, it's either equilateral, scalene, or isosceles, and that's based on the sides. So we got 12, 15, and 9. So those are my three side lengths. Well, those are all different numbers. If all three numbers are different, all three sides are different, which means this is a scalene triangle. Next, if I want to list the angles from small to large, we got to remember this up here, that the largest angle is opposite the largest side, and the smallest angle is opposite the smallest side. So if I come back down, if I'm looking for the largest angle, I need to find, I'm listing from small to large. So if I want to find the smallest angle, I need to find the smallest side. The smallest side is this one right here, 9. So if I draw an arrow, what does that point to? Angle B, this angle right here. So we know angle B is the smallest angle. So we need to know the next biggest angle. So the next biggest side is 12. So if I draw an arrow from that side, that points to angle C. So the next one would be C, and then the biggest would be 15. So if I draw an arrow, that points to A. Now I got A. So if I was listing sides from smallest to large, it would be B, then C, then A. And I can tell that without even knowing what the angles are. The only thing I need to know is that the smallest angle is opposite the smallest side, and the largest angle is opposite the largest side, and vice versa. All right, we're going to look at one more example, and this is going to tie in some of the stuff that we've done, and some of the stuff we've done and some new stuff. So it says list. So first we're going to draw triangle. And again, we'll just make it simple. We'll call this triangle ABC. ABC. And I'm going to tell you these three things. I'm going to tell you that angle A is equal to 10x. Angle B is equal to 5x minus 17. And angle C is equal to 7x minus 1. All right, now there are two things that I want you, the thing that I want you to do is I want you to list the sides from biggest to smallest. So the first thing I need to do is I'm going to plug in all this stuff in the end of my triangle. So they tell us that angle A is 10x, so I'm going to write that in. Angle B is 5x minus 17, so I'm going to put that there. And angle C is 7x minus 1. So right now, looking at these, this is the question that I'm trying to answer. List the sides from biggest to smallest. But I can't tell that unless I know what the angles are, because the angles are going to tell me which side is the biggest. So the first thing I need to do is find out what angle A, B, and C are. Now this ties back into what we did in 7-2. I need to find out what these are. We know from 7-1 and 7-2 that every triangle adds up to 180 degrees. So if I take these three angles and add them up to 180, I can find out what x is, which is what I'm going to do. So that would be 10x plus 7x minus 1 plus 5x minus 17 is equal to 180 degrees. Now I'm going to combine like terms, which means I'm going to put these x's together. So that's 10x plus 7x, which is 17, and then 17 plus 5, which would give me 22, so that's 22x. And then I'm going to combine these two numbers here. So that's -1 and -17 minus 18 is equal to 180 degrees. So now that I get to this point, this is just a two-step equation. This is something that we've been working a lot on in class. I got to move the number. So anytime I'm moving across that equal sign right there, I got to do the opposite. So I'm going to plus 18 on both sides. And that gives me, I'm going to bring this down. Those cancel. I get 22x is equal to 180 plus 18, which is 198. And then the last thing I'm going to do is divide both sides by 22. And I get x is equal to 9. So now that I got that, that's very, very important. But I don't need x. I need to know what these angles actually equal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this x equals 9 and plug it in to all of my angles to find out what they are. So that means angle A is 10 times 9, because I plug in 9 for x, which would be 90. Angle B is 5 times 9 plus 17. 5 times 9 is 45. 45 plus 17 is 62. And then lastly, this one, I would have 7 times 9 minus 1 is equal to, 7 times 9 is 63, minus 1 is 62. And then sorry, I made a mistake here. This should be 5x minus 17, so that should be 5 times 9 minus 17, not plus. My mistake. So that would be 45 minus 17, which would give me 28. Even I make mistakes sometimes. Alright, so now we got our three angle measures. Now we can put those into our triangle. So angle A, we know now, is 90 degrees. We know angle B is 28 degrees. And we know angle C is 62 degrees. Now that I know these three, I can finally answer this question right here, which is list the sides from biggest to smallest. We know the biggest side is opposite the biggest angle. The biggest angle is 90. So if I draw an arrow, we know that the biggest side is BC. Then next, if we were trying to find the next biggest side, the next biggest number is 62. So if I draw an arrow, that takes me to AB, side AB. And then lastly, if I got 28, that's the smallest side because it's the smallest angle. I draw an arrow, that takes me to this side right here, which is AC. So that's how I would answer that question. Now, that's a long question with a bunch of different stuff that we talked about, but it's all about the process and what we're trying to answer and what leads us to that answer. So again, very important concepts from this section would have been how to construct a triangle. The two smallest sides have to be bigger than the large side, and the largest angle is opposite the largest side, and the smallest angle is opposite the smallest side. So those are the things that are most important. And if you have any questions, write them down, and I'll see you in class.